Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Well, we are continuing our series on the fasting and feasting Lenten series. It started, of course, predictably on Ash Wednesday. And we started that series with going into the wilderness. It was our anointing experience. How many of you were here for that? On that particular evening, it was a ceremonial thing. It was really our first time doing it. We've added it to the curriculum. We're going to do this on a regular basis. We had fun with it. The next week, we went into healing and talked a lot about the process of healing and how it is that we can become more whole and really what healing really is, as well as what it isn't. And really had fun with that lesson on that particular evening. And then we followed it up last week with Into the Silence with Taizé. How many of you were with us on our Taizé experience? Yeah, that's a popular one too. We really enjoy that one, and we're doing that regularly as well. And so the thing for tonight is a little bit different, and what it is taking you into thankfulness. So it's another way to reflect. The Lenten season is really about reflection, about deepening your understanding and letting go of some things in your life to allow yourself to deepen and to hunker down more into your spiritual growth and into your spiritual life. It's meant to be a lead up, of course, to Easter and the exuberance and the experience of Easter. But regardless of the theology around that, it's a great opportunity, a concentrated time period where you can really just kind of give yourself reflection time. And just as Reverend Jean Marie was mentioning, the weather is just so lovely. And this time of year, this is really a small window in Houston's weather aperture. That if you want to be outside, this is the time to be outside. So walking in nature, finding yourself in a park, or walking the grounds here, or our fountains, or even the water wall out, in the courtyard by the sanctuary, are all wonderful places to just let yourself get lost in the beauty around you and in deeper reflection. So tonight, what I wanted to do was to start you off in a place that may not sound like we're going into thankfulness. So stay with me on it. We're going to start with the parable of the sower. It's in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus began to teach by the lake, and the crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake while the other people along the shore at the water's edge. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching, he said, "Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell on good soil, came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. Then Jesus said, 'Whoever has ears to hear, let him listen.'" What has that got to do with anything that you can think of, right? This sower sowing seeds in all of these unruly, unusual places, including good soil. What is this really all about? And the predictable results came out of it. Jesus didn't explain it either. Here's the thing. The deal is we've gotten caught up in the interpretation of this parable, looking at how ripe is the different kinds of soils, and equating ourselves with them, whether we're receptive to the Word of God. This is how it was interpreted for us, because a little bit later the apostles are scratching their head and going, "What's up, Jesus?" And Jesus explains, supposedly. But biblical scholars don't really believe Jesus explained it, because that wouldn't have been the way a rabbi would have taught. Because the way that you really teach is you leave it with the, especially if they don't understand it, it's a game to wrestle with in their own mind. It's a conundrum. And in the conundrum and in the solving of it becomes the answer that you answer for yourself. So what Jesus is talking about here is not so much the different kinds of soils and the ways in which we receive those things, but that's a lesson, and it's worthwhile, and if it speaks to you tonight, it's definitely a takeaway. But what I think Jesus is really talking about is the thing that's right in your face that you don't really pay attention to. What kind of a person who's trying to sow seed that has been captured from last year's harvest? In other words, this is grain that you didn't eat, because the grain is the part of the edible part of the plant. You didn't eat this, you saved it for next year, and you kept it in a dry place, in a place where it wouldn't get eaten by varmints or anything else, because this is going to be the basis for your next year's harvest, right? So you take good care of this seed. So you don't throw it in the path, and you don't throw it in the thorns, and you don't throw it in places where there's not a shallow, where you haven't tilled the soil for it to be receptive. You don't throw it all those crazy places. Who is this guy anyway? He's not in harmony. He's not aligned with his own purpose or his own intention. He's a crazy man. You know, he probably drank a little too much before he started out there into the field. Something's off here. And what it is that here we have this great gift of life. And what we have done is we pilfer it by not directing it in alignment with our purpose. We're the sowers. We're not the soil that receives the seed. We are the ones in control of the seed and taking it places. So it matters what kind of mindset we have, what kind of frame of mind. How is it that we are living our lives? What is it we intend? How do we handle the seeds that come into our life, in the fruition of our life, for a new harvest? How do we care for them? And how do we plant them with awareness, with intentionality, with purpose? What do we carry within ourselves as learnings from our life that we can benefit the world in a more powerful place for being in alignment with a purpose and with an understanding and with greater wisdom from living life and not just throwing it around? Michael Mahoney says, there are many things to be grateful for, but he says, as I ripen with the seasons of life, the many reasons blend into a sacred mystery. And most deeply, I realize that living gratefully is its own blessing. Now you can see a little thread into thankfulness. Living gratefully, what does that mean? How is it that the attitude that we live our lives from bears fruit in our lives? How is it that the attitude and the intentionality that we use our life force for blesses the world, fulfills our souls, brings purpose into alignment with our lives? Gratitude is a spontaneous state that arises when we have fully received and let in the blessings. I started off by telling you this season that we're in, this Lenten season, is an opportunity for you to reflect on your life. It is a time to reflect on the things that have taught you the most. And my guess is the things that have taught you the most have been the most difficult and probably the most challenging things in your life as well. The hardest to get through, the things you wouldn't have necessarily brought on purpose, that you wouldn't have wished on people you love and even people you don't care about. You wouldn't probably even, have that kind of animosity to somebody to give them some stuff that you've had to go through, right? This whole idea of being able to look at our lives and find the good and find the blessing is to harvest our lives. It is to separate the chaff from the seed, from the part that has capacity, has potential, that is something worthwhile. It was for this that I went through all of that. I get it. I couldn't be here now. I couldn't be doing this now. I wouldn't be in this place. I wouldn't know these people. I wouldn't have this kind of work. I wouldn't have this family if it hadn't been for some of the things that I went through to get here now. Right? We can see places that have led us to some of the greatest blessings and from some of the most beautiful fortunes of our lives that we did not know how to get to if we had not gone through some dark night of the soul. Gratitude is the spontaneous state that arises when we have fully received and let in the blessings. In other words, you don't have to work up gratitude. There's all these gratitude journals, which are great, and there's all these gratitude practices that we go through. There was a time, was it 20 years ago? I can't even think of her last name. She did this gratefulness thing at gratitude journals that went through like wildfire through New Thought churches, and they're wonderful. And if you practice it, it is a great practice. And I know people who really use this deliberately and religiously on a regular basis, and it really is a blessing. It's a great way to be. And what sometimes comes up for us is that it's like it's almost a should, like I need to feel grateful for that. Come on, Karen, stop bitching and complaining. Come on, just feel glad about it. It's like I'm not feeling grateful yet. I'm still not happy. Still trying to figure out how it got here. I'm still trying to figure out if this belongs to somebody else. I'm trying to figure out if, there's somebody else to blame in this situation. I don't know. As soon as I'm over that, then I might be able to, cough up a little gratitude. But I'm going to tell you right now that gratefulness, real gratitude, isn't something that you work up, honestly. Gratitude will come spontaneously when you have digested and completely internalized what the fullness of this experience has really meant to you. And when you have done that from an honest and real place, processed it and integrated it, you will get the blessing. You will have power restored to you. You will have the opportunity to recognize that some wisdom has seated itself inside of you in a powerful new way. Something has been added to you. That's how you will know. And you will not have to work up some gratitude. You will be entered into a state of gratitude. And it will flow from you. And it will flow from you like honey flows out of a jar. It will be exactly like a state of bliss, of little bliss, of sweetness that will sweeten your path. And it will have no end. It comes from an infinite source. It is a place in you where gratitude will flow spontaneously as you realize what your blessings are. I call that great fullness. Yes, I'm gonna trademark that one. Great fullness. Can you feel that? It really is that. Because it comes from here, it doesn't come from up here. You didn't have to reason it and logic it and parse it all out and follow some logic and say, well, if I hadn't done this and I hadn't gone there, well, I guess maybe da-da-da, I guess I should be grateful. Does that feel like gratefulness to you? Not quite. You're on your way, but you're not there. Gratefulness is when you go, I feel so blessed. How did I get here? Something more than me must have known this would be the thing. This is how I got here, right? Gratefulness. Gratefulness. William Arthur Ward says, gratitude can transform common days into thanksgivings, turn routine jobs into joy, and change ordinary opportunities into blessings. Gratitude. Allowing yourself to digest and to really integrate and to really become a living presence to your life, an aware, open-minded, open-hearted person walking in your shoes, in your life, breathing your breath and being aware of it, allows you to be open to gratitude, to be open to the opportunity to really live. Reaping the seeds of our lives and culling the hulls from them and get to the heart of the gift of the experience. That's what it is. The intentions of those who loved us the best they knew is to learn how to accept the gifts they have given as imperfectly as they have. As imperfect as they were, as imperfect as we were and are. Yeah? Still, some magic happens in those interactions. Still, some infinite blessings have been dropped in, unbeknownst and beyond our capacity to have intended anything on that kind of scale. We just don't understand our lives like that, do we? We don't understand them until we have lived and turned around and re-examined where we've been. And then we begin to glimpse, we begin to see, right? It takes reflection, it takes integration, it takes breaking open the seeds and getting rid of the husk and the indigestible part of our experience, you know what I'm talking about, and take that kernel that has all the nutrient, that has all the potential, that has all the power and all the beauty in it, and add that to your treasure trove of wisdom. The antidote to regret is gratefulness. When you look back over your life and there's something that's still stuck in your life, in your mind, something stuck in your throat, something stuck in your heart, from something back there, some regret. Gratefulness is its antidote. You have not digested this, picked this up, really, really looked at it, retraced your steps and tried to figure out how did you get from here to way over here. But by the grace of that, something in that had to have contributed. And take it apart and open it up and digest it and allow spontaneous gratitude to come out of it. And in that moment, you begin to realize there is a gift and a power that needs to be restored to your treasure trove of wisdom, of who you are, of what you have come here to be. The antidote to regret is gratefulness. Karen Tudor said that. You can write that one down too. I made that one up, I guess. Digesting what we have learned and what we want to be more conscious about using in our lives, what things to pass on to those who follow us. The only way we can be good teachers and good models is to understand our own lives, to really know how it is that what has blessed us, that we may emulate that from the wisdom of those who have preceded us or impacted us in any way, and how it is that we can leave a trail of seed in our own wake for others to find or to use. In John chapter 12, Jesus said, "Very truly, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many, many more seeds." limitless, infinite, forever. There's no season to it. There's no time limit. What you leave in your wake will continue long after your body is in the ground. Because you are not your body. And the great gift of your life cannot be housed in one either. It lives everywhere, even now. In Matthew chapter 13, he told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. You've seen mustard seed? How many of you use dry mustard? Have you ever seen dry mustard? Pour it out. It's powder. I thought it was mustard that would have been ground up. I didn't realize that mustard was actually mustard seed and that, a tiny little flick of a little yellow thing. That's how big a mustard seed is. So Jesus is talking about that mustard seed, and he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which sounds like a terrible thing to say about heaven. It's a mustard seed, a tiny little thing, which a man took and planted in his field. And though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of the garden plants, and in fact becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. Now that befits the kingdom of heaven a little bit better, doesn't it? Tiny little thing that when it does its job, when it becomes everything, multiplies on such a level that it's unbelievable that it started from such a tiny thing and grew to such a significant, different thing than it looked like as a seed. The smallest of all seeds, you know what that is? It is this present living moment. What are you? What are you thinking? What do you intend? What do you love? What are you? Who are you? What is next for you? What will you say? Where will you go? Who will you be with? What will you reach out to do, to achieve, to make different, to heal, to hold, to love? This present moment is the only one that matters. The only one that matters because it is so full of potential. It is a fleck of time. But it is ever before you because it is the only one that matters. Don't spend time in the future and don't spend time rehashing the past unless you're reflecting in the present moment on what is it that wants to be made known to you. This is a present moment experience, even if it has the seed from your past. It's because it is something for the present moment to equip you to move forward in your life. And this is a real-time, present moment experience. The smallest of all seeds, the present moment. Dr. Rachel Naomi Reman talks about meeting His Holiness the Dalai Lama one time. And when she was in San Francisco, a friend of hers was going to a luncheon where the Dalai Lama was going to be. And so she asked Rachel if she wanted to go with her. And she said, okay. So she went. She figured it'd be about 40 people there. As a matter of fact, it was in this high-end hotel in San Francisco. It was crowded full of all of these, well-heeled people of business and, celebrities and all kinds, just crammed full of people. And she was starting to feel like they were the kind of people that, have you ever talked with people who are smiling, shaking your hand and looking over your shoulder to see if there's somebody else in the crowd they should be talking to and not you? That they could be spending their time better with somebody else, and you just kind of feel like you're in their way, and you just kind of realize that maybe you don't really belong here. That's kind of how she was feeling. And her friend had brought a bag made out of string. It was a bag, a woven bag, a loosely woven bag. And in it, she had 3 large framed pictures of her cancer treatment that she had innovated, and she wanted to show pictures of it to the Dalai Lama. She had one question for him, and she wanted to show him the picture, so she brought it in this bag. So they get ready to, they've been in there for a little while, and the Dalai Lama hasn't shown up, and they go, you know, maybe this isn't for us, maybe we ought to go. So they start to head towards the door at about the time the Dalai Lama shows up. And so what happens is they actually find themselves really near the head of the line. So they go ahead and stay, and as they're making their way, Rachel's friend is trying to get the pictures out of this woven bag. Can you see that? That real, you know, this oversized thing in this bag that just clings to every corner and every side of it. Finally, she works them all out, and she gets them all out, and she gets up there just as she gets to the Dalai Lama, and the bag falls to the ground, and she shows him the pictures, and they're standing looking at them, and Rachel sees this man. She said, I've met a lot of people who are supposed to be enlightened in the world, but I haven't been too impressed before. They all seem pretty ordinary to me. But this man put his head next to her friend and looked at the pictures as though they were the only two people in the room. And she explained what she wanted to tell him, and he responded. And when the visit was over, he reached down and he picked up the bag and he held it open for her so she could put the pictures back in, and helped him put that together. And here's what Rachel said about that encounter. She says, it's not easy to say why this small gesture had such power for me. Thinking back on it later, I realized that few of the other men in the room might have done such a thing. But I do not think that that is why I remember it. It was not so much what His Holiness had done, but the way in which He had done it. In this tiny interaction, I felt something purely joyful in Him go forward from Him to meet with her in the problem. In that moment, getting 3 large, stiff pictures into a flexible string bag was not her problem or his. It was not even a problem. It was an opportunity to meet. Of all those in the world who could have picked up a string bag and held it out, I doubt anyone else could have done it in quite this way. For some inexplicable reason, a place in me that has felt alone and abandoned for all of my life felt deeply comforted, and I had a wildly irrational thought. This is my friend. And in that moment, it seemed absolutely true. It still does. The tiny flash of the present moment is actually a moment that never ends, that is always awaiting your focus, your attention, your next choice, your word, your thought, your agreement, your will. Your life is that kind of precious, that kind of power, that kind of generative. And every time you think and marvel at how wow that is, a wash of gratitude and thankfulness and gratefulness fills you. And nothing shall be impossible for you. Jesus told another parable. He told a lot of seed parables, but here's another one. Mark 4, he says, this is what the kingdom of God is like. A man scatters seed on the ground. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. And all by itself, the soil produces grain. First the stalk, then the head, then the full kernel in the head. As soon as the grain is ripe, he puts a sickle to it because the harvest has come. There is a cooperation with a great wonder beyond our view, beyond our vision, but deeply embedded in our experience, because we are the beneficiaries. Not only are we the beneficiaries, we are its fruit. We ourselves are the great harvest. From moment to moment, a life is lived. The kingdom of heaven is not in a seed, it is within you. Into thankfulness, we reap what we sow. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.